This is Mr. Rittner, and today I'm going to be showing you, this is kind of a tutorial on how to kind of navigate ArcGIS. So we're not actually making anything here, but I'm just trying to show you how to navigate things so that you understand all of the different tools and how to use them within this really powerful GIS software. So you can see I've opened up a new map in ArcGIS. I signed in, so I can see I have my name in the top right hand corner that tells me I've signed in effectively. You should double check that you have your name in the top right hand corner when you're doing this. So I made you an organizational account, which is a lot more powerful than the free account you would make on your own. Since we're a school, an institution, I have that ability. And rather than just making maps, just in quotations, we have a lot more maneuverability with what we can do. So I want to kind of show you around your account today. So I'm not actually going to start with how to navigate the map part. I actually want to draw your attention up here to where it says Home on your screen. So if you could go ahead and select the menu for Home. Okay, we're going to click on that drop-down menu, and you have all these different options here. There's Home, Gallery, Scene, Notebook, Groups, Content, and Organization. So for our purposes, I think the best thing for us right now is let's start with Home. This is kind of our organizational home page, if you will. All right, just kind of explaining, what we're able to do with stuff and stuff like that. But this is your Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools. That should come up when you select Home from that menu. Gallery is kind of our school gallery of different resources and layers that I've made available to you. So this is a great way for me to push different layers that you might need. I will show you how to access these in your maps and add them to your maps. That'll be super helpful in a little bit. We used map earlier. We saw a map before. That takes us to a new map in ArcGIS. That's where we can actually create our map files, if you will. I'm still not ready to do that just yet. I want to bring us to, let's look at content. So content brings you to your account organization, or organizational account rather. And you'll see on the left you have folders here. And so with folders, I have all of my content available here. I have 171 layers. You probably have 0 at the moment, or just a handful. That can get really difficult to keep organized with. So there are different folders that we can add to our account. You start with a home folder, if you will. But I would encourage you to have different folders, much like I do, for different projects that you're sort of working on. So if you want to add a folder, I'm going to ask you to do that now. You can click on this Create New Folder button. So I left click that, and I would create a folder for yourself called, let's call it ArcGIS Bootcamp, something like that. And I can add that. And now I have a folder where I can store all of my maps and files that I'm going to be using in ArcGIS Bootcamp. I strongly encourage you to do that. I'll show you how we can save files to that in a couple of minutes. But you have this search ability here. You can search for files that you're looking for. If I'm in my content, for example, and I wanted to find my Chesapeake Bay files, I could type in Chesapeake, and the computer will sort of pull up all of the relevant data files for me. All right, but that's a great organizational tool to be working with. And so this is a really great place to go when you're looking for specific files that you own and have created. But right now, let's actually go ahead and open up a new map. So click Map at the top, and that'll take us to a brand new map like this one. I'm using the classic map viewer. There is a new map viewer that they're kind of pushing out. I really don't like it. I find it more confusing than anything else. It's nothing different. It's just it's organized differently. I don't particularly love it, so I'm going to stick with the new map format. All right, if you want to use the new one, that's fine. I'm going to stick with the classic one though. Now, when I'm looking at my map, you can see we have a whole bunch of different tools here. So with, if I ever need to make a new map, I can, select new map here or open a recent map I was working on. So if I needed to, I could go ahead and just select Create New Map, and that'll bring up a brand new map for me to work with. And that's the best way to start any sort of project with ArcGIS. Now, keep in mind that while you're working on your maps, It does not save automatically. This is not like Google Drive where it's kind of backing everything up for you automatically. It is a cloud-based software, but it's not going to back things up and save them for you automatically. You have to do that manually. So if we're looking at our toolbar here, you have home. We have, this is called My Map. It's just a generic name. I have not saved it yet. I have my details panel here, which gives me a whole bunch of descriptions on how to do things, right? How you can choose an area, decide what to show, add more to your map, and how to save and share your map. But from this details panel, I can go to About, I can look at what content is present. Right now I just have a topographic base map, and my legend, there's no layers in there, so I don't have a legend yet. I have this Add button I can use, we'll come back to that later. I can control what my base map is. I could pick imagery, for example. Makes it more like Google Earth. I could do Streets View like Google Maps. But I like topographic, so we'll just stick with that. That's probably the easiest one to work with. You have analysis, which are a whole suite of tools that you can use to analyze your data and perform different analyses with. You'll see that in the bootcamp assignments. I'm not going to go through that right now. But now we've finally, as we work our way from left to right, we've arrived at the Save button. So I can save my map, which I'm going to ask you to do to kind of practice. By left-clicking on this, I have a drop-down menu. I have Save and Save As. Whenever you're first saving a map, the first time, you need to use the Save As. When I click Save As, the computer's going to say, no problem, we'll save it, but you need to give me some information to save it with. So it needs a title. Let's try Map Test 1. I always include my initials because the way our organization account is set up, every title of anything that you create, whether it's a map or a layer, has to have its own unique name. So using your initials, make sure that you have if there's another Map Test 1 out there that someone else saved, I won't get an error message. So I always like to use my initials there. For tags, this is just something that ArcGIS, or rather Esri, the developer of ArcGIS, requires. So I usually, unless I have something better, I'll usually just put SPFHS. This is kind of like a tag you can associate with your map. For a summary, this is like a one-sentence description of your map. So this is a test map for my tutorial video. Now, obviously, you're not going to use that same summary when you're developing your own maps. You'd have to provide a summary of whatever it is that you're working on, just like in a sentence. Now, this is the important part. Where do you want to save this? By default, it kind of picks your home folder. So for me, that's zrittner_SPFSD, my username. Your username is also your home folder. I would use the drop-down menu to pick the ArcGIS Bootcamp folder you had made previously and save your map there. From now on, if I want to save my work, I don't have to go through the Save As menu. I would just use Save. If I choose to go through Save As, it'll save a duplicate of this map under a different name, essentially. So that's an easy way to make a duplicate of your map if you needed to. Next here, we have the Share button. So if I click Share Map, this allows me to configure it as to who I want to share the map with, who has access and can view the map. You could, so currently, we have it set to private, right? Only I can view the map, just like only you can view your map. Whenever you're doing work, though, for this class, you need to make sure that I have access to it so that I can see it, especially for ArcGIS Bootcamp. So you could do everyone if you really wanted to, that anyone in the world could have access to it, or it's probably better just to make it anyone within our organization has access. So you can check that box there. Please don't select the SPFHS gallery. That's kind of the gallery I use to push different files and maps to you guys. So please don't save your work there. But you don't have to check anything there anyway. You can just check off our organization. And when you go to submit your work, like with the template document, you can grab the link to your map. Please use this one. Okay, so you go to the Share menu. You can just copy and paste that into the correct spot in your template. Okay, but that's pretty straightforward there. That's the Share menu in a nutshell. You have the Print menu here, which gives you a nice little, swing it over here. So it opens up a new screen essentially, and gives you a printer-friendly version of your map. All right. You can get directions if you wanted to, kind of like Google Maps, which is pretty nice. That's what the directions tool uses. Now I also have this measure tool, which can be really helpful if you're trying to measure area or distance or location for something. You might need to use this in the ArcGIS bootcamp, for example. But I have these different tools, so I can use this tool here for area. I have a distance calculator, and I can also find different coordinates on the map. So if I wanted to, I could change the units to acres or to square yards or something. And what I can do to measure area, I would just kind of draw a polygon on the map, and it'll tell me everything in this gray area. You know, that's how many square yards that is. Or if I wanted to, it'll convert that to square miles. So, you know, you can kind of trace the outline of a location and calculate its area. Or we could measure the distance between, say, let's see if it works, San Francisco and New York. That's about 2,500 miles. That's pretty cool. Okay, that's a pretty helpful little tool there. And you also have this search bar here for finding specific locations. So if I wanted to find Scotch Plains Fanwood High School, I can kind of search that up, and it'll take us directly to the school. That's a pretty nifty little feature there. I mentioned earlier you have the ability to change your base maps and stuff, so I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. So now we're looking more at New Jersey. If I go back over here to base map, again, you can play with this a little bit and try and find the base map that best complements whatever you're working on. Sometimes you might feel more comfortable working with like a light gray canvas if you were trying to highlight a particular layer file. Sometimes it's more helpful to use an imagery hybrid, so you can see what it actually looks like on the ground. So we'll go back to the high school for a second. We can actually see the high school here, but we also have labeled our different streets and stuff. But there's our high school campus, which is pretty neat. I mentioned earlier how to access the analysis tools. The one other thing I want to show you before we wrap it up here is how to add, content to your map. So let me scroll back out for a second, kind of give us a more national view, the national scale. So there's the United States. I'm going to switch back. I like topographics. I'm going to just stick with that as my base map. But in terms of adding content to the map, we have a few different options. So I have this add button here. I mentioned it before. I said I'd come back, so now this is us coming back to it. If I left click on add, I have a few different options. I can search for layers. I can browse Living Atlas. I can add layers from the web, from a file. I can also add map notes. So if I want to add layers, let's say I click on that, I have the option I can search my content, right? I have lots of files that I have access to that I could add here. You probably don't have any. But as that changes, like when you build your own layers and stuff, you'll be able to search your content for those layers to add. So one of the things you'll be adding at some point this year, or during this bootcamp assignment, you'll create your own Scotch Plains Fanwood ecosystem boundary, like I did. So I can go ahead and add that to my map like so. You can't do that yet, but I'm just showing you an example of how I could do that. You also have the ability to go to My Groups. Let's turn that off for a second. These are all different files that I am providing to you guys. I'm making them available. I'm kind of pushing them to you from our gallery page. So the My Groups allows you to search the gallery page, which is nice. Now I have a bunch of different files here, but one of the things I have readily available is this 2022 soil survey, the class of 2022 soil survey. I can add that. That's a file I made available to students, and we can see where students were gathering their data from within the Scotch Plains Fanwood ecosystem. So that's pretty cool. In addition to My Groups, I can go to Living Atlas. This is an online data house that I can kind of look at. And I can grab, Esri's publishing different authoritative layers and stuff. That might be helpful depending on, the assignment you're working on. You might need to go and find something here. But they offer some really, really cool and innovative data that you can incorporate into your maps. This is one, data bank, if you will, or source you can use. There's also ArcGIS Online, which offers its own suite of different available layers and stuff you could add. But one of the other things we can do is if I go back to add for a second, Now, before I do that, just so you're aware, when I'm adding content, I have my different layers here, so I can control if the layer file is on or not. And I have these different tools that I can use to modify my layers. So I have first here, I can show the legend if I wanted to. I could show a data table of different values and stuff, kind of your spreadsheet, if you will. I have the ability to change my style. I can play with the different display options and stuff. I'm not going to mess with that right now. Clean this up a little bit. You'll practice these tools as you go through boot camp, but we just did change style. I can filter to control how much data is being presented. And I have my perform analysis where I can run different analyses on my data. But what I wanted to show you, turn this off, is I can also add map notes to mark up my map. And so if I go back to add and I pick add map notes, we'll just call it map notes. You might want to, you can make it something more appropriate. Maybe we want to do, test trial map notes. Again, I would add initials. We'll keep the template at map notes, but we'll hit create. And I have all of these different tools I can use to kind of mark up the map. So maybe I want to add a note about something going on here. I can use a stick pin. I can grab stick pin or push pin across, but I can add a point to the map, and I can give it a title. So, I could talk about soil survey, and I could, leave a description here, notes about how soil was collected maybe. Okay, I can even add different imagery and stuff to it. And if I close this out, maybe I don't want to have this particular symbol. I don't like the little stick pin. I can change my symbol. And I can use different shapes. I could make it a little purple diamond, for example. Or if I don't want to use some of these basic shapes, I could go out of shapes and explore some of my other options. Maybe I want to use a point of interest. Give that a moment. And, maybe I want to use something a little bit more fun, like we'll use an educational symbol like that. But you can kind of pick an appropriate symbol to represent your map note. You have the ability to edit your map notes kind of whenever you want. I'm in the edit mode right now. I can turn that off. And this is kind of locked, and I can see like, oh, this is my note that I'm leaving for my reader. Not a particularly wonderful note, but I can always go back and edit it if I needed to and add more information here as I go along. Finally, we'll turn this off. We've explored the About menu here, kind of give you some information about the actual map in and of itself. We talked about content. I can turn some of these files off, or these layers off, and I can access my legends that shows me what these different symbols and colors mean essentially. But anyway, guys, this is kind of just a walkthrough, if you will, of ArcGIS and how to kind of play with it. There's nothing you need to like submit from this activity, but it was really just to kind of walk you through all the different tools and stuff, and kind of have you put your foot in the door, so to speak, before you start working on the different ArcGIS lessons and exploring those different activities and stuff. Anyway, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you guys real soon. Bye now.